From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Deposed Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, departs our way in Nasarawa State for Abuja en route to Lagos following court order releasing him from detention after his dethronement by the Kano State government. Federal government confirms second case of COVID-19 in Nigeria has tested negative to the virus after a week-long treatment and care as 179 contact cases are released from isolation. President Buhari directs further consultations by committee set up to review impact of coronavirus on the nation's economy after receiving its interim report. And top U.S. commander for the Middle East says threat posed from Iran remains high after America's retaliatory airstrikes on an Iran-backed militia in Iraq. Plus, you see business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later, international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, leading financial institution FBN Holding makes clarifications on speculations of First Bank's merger with Polaris and Heritage Banks.
And on sports news tonight, the Federal Ministry of Health says the Edo 2020 National Sports Festival will not be cancelled despite the coronavirus pandemic stalling global sporting events.
Progressive Congress insists the National Executive Committee meeting of the party fixed for March the 17th would hold as planned.
The deposed Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, has left our way in Nasarawa State, where he has been on exile after his dethronement on Monday. Alhaji Sanusi departed from Awe town in company of the governor of Kaduna State, Nasser El-Rufai, who visited him earlier today. Governor El-Rufai told journalists that the former emir is heading to Lagos through Abuja. The former emir's departure from Nasarawa State follows an order granted by the Federal High Court in Abuja, releasing him from detention in line with the prayers on the ex parte motion filed on behalf of his lawyer, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi. Before leaving Nasarawa, Governor El-Rufai and the former emir paid a visit to the state governor, Abdullahi Sule. We'll bring you more on the deposed Emir of Kano's journey to Lagos later in the bulletin. But let's tell you the second confirmed case of COVID-19 in Nigeria has now tested negative to the virus after a week-long treatment and care at the Infectious Diseases Hospital in Yaba, Lagos State. The Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Hanire, maintains that health officials are also closely monitoring the improvement in the health status of the index case with the hope of discharging him early next week. According to him, the current status of COVID-19 in the country does not require a travel ban on any country. He, however, reiterated government's determination to step up surveillance and screening at the various entry points, especially the international airports.
Between 7 January and 12 March 2020, a total of 42 people who met our case definition have been screened for COVID-19 in 6 states: Edo, Lagos, Ogun, Yobe, Rivers, Kano, and the FCT, of which 40 tested negative and 2 were confirmed positive. And these 2 are the index case and the contact of the index case in Lagos, and we have had no deaths from COVID-19. The index case is clinically stable and is much improved. Steady progress till early next week will guide the medical team in discharging him. The second confirmed case, a contact of the index case, is testing negative for the virus now, meaning he has cleared the virus and will be allowed to go home. Due to ongoing transmission of yellow fever in parts of Nigeria, it is pertinent to activate Nigeria's point of entry policy on prevention and control of cross-border transmission of yellow fever in line with World Health Organization recommendation for all international travelers who are 9 months old or older who are arriving in areas with evidence of persistent.
It's more positive news on the coronavirus from the Lagos State government, confirming that 179 persons in Lagos and Ogun states who had contact with the index case have been released from isolation. The Lagos State Commissioner of Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, says since the 179 contacts had exceeded the mandatory 14 days isolation, they have been released because none of them developed any symptoms. However, in Delta State, it's not all joy, as Governor Ifeanyi Okowa reveals that the COVID-19 outbreak has slowed the completion of the new Central Secretariat project in Asaba, the state capital.
It appears the partial gloom that enveloped Lagos and Ogun states as a result of the outbreak of the COVID-19 is being lifted, as the Lagos state government says all the people who had contact with the coronavirus index case have been released. On the index case, Professor Abayomi explains that he still remains in isolation until the state government is convinced he is no longer a threat to society.
A test suggests that any moment from now, his immune system will clear the infection. And the moment we pick that up, then we will be looking for a second negative. So let's say the next test tomorrow is negative. 48 hours after that, we repeat it. If it's still negative, it means that he's consistently deemed to be non-contagious. That means he cannot transmit the virus and he will pose no danger to community.
How many persons do we have? And
There is also some good news from neighboring Ogun State that it has successfully contained the outbreak of coronavirus in conjunction with its development partners.
We have also deployed technology to assist us in reaching our frontline health workers in the PHC in Iwekoro local government, and we continue to implement this across the 19 other local governments, while scaling up our surveillance activity, case management, risk communication with the support of our partners.
Elsewhere in Delta State, South Nigeria, the story is somewhat different, as the state government is blaming the slow pace of work on the multi-million naira Asaba Central Secretariat complex on the outbreak of COVID-19.
And I'm told they work both Saturdays and Sundays. As to the quality of the work is perfect. We're just hoping and praying that they'll be able to gain time along and finish on time, because we're having a shift of the completion date now to July.
In spite of the progress recorded in containing the spread of the disease in Lagos and Ogun states, authorities in the two states believe there is still work to be done. They are appealing to residents to continue to observe basic personal and respiratory hygiene to contain the spread of COVID-19.
Outside Nigeria, the head of the World Health Organization says Europe is now the epicenter of the global coronavirus pandemic. Several countries in Europe have reported steep rises in the number of infections and deaths. Spain is now the worst affected after Italy. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has declared a national emergency to help handle the growing outbreak of the virus. As countries around the world also try to stem the spread, large gatherings have been banned, schools closed, and sports events cancelled.
As the COVID-19 death toll and number of infections continue to rise, more nations are taking actions to slow the spread of the virus, shutting down schools, implementing travel restrictions, or passing other emergency measures. Schools in 6 U.S. states have been told to shut down on Monday for at least 2 weeks. French schools will also be closed on Monday for 15 days, while Belgian schools will be closed until Easter. The moves follow similar announcements from Germany, Republic of Ireland, Spain, Pakistan, the Philippines, Portugal, and Bolivia. In the United Kingdom, the government says such measures are being considered, but at this stage, such measures could do more harm than good.
We have been guided by the science, and we will do the right thing at the right time. We are not, repeat not, closing schools now.
Elsewhere in Europe, Italy, which has recorded over 1,000 deaths, is on lockdown with the closure of restaurants, bars and almost all shops except food stores and pharmacies. On the African continent, Ghana, Gabon, Ethiopia, Sudan and Kenya have all recorded their first cases. In Kenya, the government has banned all major public events.
We have suspended all public gatherings, meetings, religious crusades, games, and all events that are of a huge public nature. No more church services can go on, provided that they provide sanitizing and hand washing as people go into the worshipping areas.
In other developments, the Canadian Prime Minister is in isolation after his wife Sophie tested positive for the virus. Mr. Trudeau is not showing any virus symptoms. Australian Home Affairs Minister has also tested positive for the virus. He had travelled to Washington, D.C. last week, where he met with various people, including President Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump.
Firstly, I want to say thank you very much. As you expect.
Well, back in Nigeria, the federal government is still looking to find the best possible response to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 and the fall in oil prices. The committee set up by President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday has been asked to make further consultations before it submits its final report next week. Figures of capital releases in the 2020 budget as at February 10 were also given by the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, who spoke to State House correspondent. Our correspondent Ibrahim Adra reports.
That committee set up by Mr. President with the task of assessing the impact of COVID-19 and the falling prices of crude oil turned in an interim report today, but its work is not done as the President has asked members to go back, consult further and come up with a conclusive report next week. In the meantime, though, there are strong assurances that in spite of the expected review, government work will continue. Mrs. Zainab Ahmed is a member of the committee.
What we have been mandated to do is to ensure that the business of government continues to run as much as possible normally, that government agencies are funded, that there must be continuous investments in critical infrastructure that would ensure continuous growth, and also concentrate on programs and projects that will enhance employment of our people.
The minister also gave update on the performance of the 2020 budget so far.
A number of ministries and agencies that have important infrastructure projects have got their funds. Also this week we have been able to release to the Ministry of Transport the counterpart funding that is required, provided for in our budget, that is required for the important railway projects that are currently ongoing with financing from the China Exim Bank.
Incidental to COVID-19 scare is the spike in the price of dollars. The central bank governor said no need to panic.
Anybody who has any legitimate business will get foreign exchange to conduct his business. We have also begun a very serious examination in collaboration with Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit as well as other security agencies. EFCC is also working with us to establish the people who are involved.
We are still...
The Minister of State Petroleum spoke on the possible downward review of pump price of petrol in the country.
Usually, the product prices follow the crude oil price, but We're still consulting, and we'll get back to you. Please be patient.
It's a challenging period with plenty of uncertainties. While health officials are receiving accolades for halting COVID-19 so far, the economic managers may have to work even harder to put in place measures to shore up the budget and mitigate the impact of revenue shortfall. Ibrahim Adra, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, more on the coronavirus, and we have the Minister of State, Dr. Larinimbe Mamora, to shed light on the current situation in the country. Plus, APC faction insists there is no going back on the party's NEC meeting scheduled for next week in Abuja. Please stay with us.